Hello and welcome to the short Vort on Parsha Shemini from Shishi to Shvi. I hope you've enjoyed your vacation for Pesach. We had 2 weeks where there was no short Vort, no obligation to be Mavir Sedra, but if you got out of the habit, now's the time to get back in for both of them. So in Perek Yud Aleph Pasuk Yud Tes, we're discussing in this segment about kosher and non-kosher foods. And one of the kosher foods in this pasuk is the Chasidah, the stork. So Rashi says, why is this animal called a stork? Because it does chesed, it does kindness with its friends. So the Chedushay Harim asks, why is it that an animal that does such chesed is not kosher? Why is it not available for us to eat? The answer is because it does chesed only with its friends and not with others. And the obligation for a Jewish person, and you are what you eat, is to do chesed with other people, to be nosei olim chavero, to help people, even people that you haven't met yet, not just with your friends. Reb Yerucham Mir, the Mashkiach in Mir, talks about Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, the founder of the Musar movement, that he was once asking about Reb Leib Chassid, someone he had not yet met, and he wanted to know about him. And among the questions was, he asked, is this a person who either experienced, or if he did experience this scenario, he would respond in the following manner: if you would go into a store and the storekeeper would say, look, can you stay behind the counter for a few hours and I'm going to learn Torah instead of you learning Torah, would he accept this and actually go behind the counter? And the proper answer that is implied is that yes, he would actually be movatel his own Torah to allow someone else to the opportunity to learn, and this would be a chesed. So we see that even our obligation goes to the extent to be movatel Torah. It reminds me of an expression that someone else's gashmias is your ruchnias, that someone else's physical needs is your spiritual obligation. So if we're talking here about the level of giving up from yourself, from your life, your Torah, where do we see an example of someone giving up their life for someone else, for a stranger? So we see that from Adam Arishon. The Medrash says that Adam found out that David HaMelech would have been a Nephel, who would have been stillborn or less than 30 days living, and he gave up 70 years of his life so that David HaMelech can live. So that means that Adam Arishon, who was supposed to live for 1,000 years, he only lived for 930 years that we see in the Torah. So that's how far we should go to sacrifice for others. Continuing in the thought, which comes all from a new sefer that I read for the first time while I was in Lakewood for the last days of Pesach, and based on Imrei Shamai, which appears to be Reb Shammai Ginsburg, that he concludes with the question of one of the Ger Rebbes, and that is, well, the Achbar also, if it finds food, it invites its friends to join us, the other rats or mice, to come eat. So why is that called an Achbar, which is not a nice sound and actually considered to be rishus? That while the Chasidah gets to be called something from Chesed. So the answer is the Chasidah, when it shares with others, it's from its own items. It's not something that it stole from somewhere else. Meanwhile, the rats will go into a house or a barn and take produce and other items that are not theirs, and therefore that's why it has a bad name. We should learn from the lessons of the way Rabbi Yisrael Salanter wants us to accomplish, to be sacrificing for others, and I hope you'll take this time to share the short Vort, share it at the table, share it online. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you next week in Yitz Hashem.